Welcome to PropTeaTalk show, where dreams of homes and gardens grow. We're here to guide your property right, strap in tight, enjoy the flow. Sip your tea, let's talk the deed. Finding gems for every need, from quaint retreats to city beats. We've got the tips you wanna heed. PropTeaTalk, we got your back in the world of real estate jack. Listen in, we've got the knack for turning dreams from white to black.
Well, welcome back to the show. Today we are sitting down with someone virtually who is reshaping how Australians think about their money. Our guest is Cameron Dury, the CEO and co-founder of Canwi, a platform many people are already calling the zero of modern financial planning. So in this episode, Cams opens up about his early experience with money, how those moments shaped the way he thinks about the world today, and the journey that led him to build Canwi, a tool designed to help everyday Australians get clearer, more confident, and more in control of their financial future. So we'll dive into why financial planning feels a bit more broken for so many people, especially younger generation, what Canwi is doing differently, and how technology can make wealth planning simple, transparent, and actually enjoyable. And of course, we ask Cam to bring a little something special for our listeners, so stay with us right until the end. So let's get into it. Welcome, Cam, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, William. It's really good to sit down and chat today. So really looking forward to chatting.
Thanks, Cam. So before we go into Canwi, I'd love to go back a little bit. So because everyone's relationship with money, with wealth starts somewhere, right? So Cam, when you think about the early years, what shapes your view of money growing up?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I think I grew up in, I guess, a very middle-class family. And then my first job really was in consulting. I was working on financial advice transformation programs. And I think that was all on the back of the advice scandals that were kind of coming out in like the late 2000s and the early 2010s. And I was working on a range of different things to try and engage people with money. And I think that really opened me up from the very beginning, very start of my career to if you think about money and think about how you can apply that to achieve your goals, you get a massively outsized impact. So that's kind of, I think, my sort of introduction to money was working on financial advice transformation programs very early in my career, which was very, very pivotal.
Yeah. So, and I think you mentioned to me one of your stories about you have a mate and you have a different path because you took a different kind of decision. Are you able to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I love sharing this story. But yeah, so when I started out in my career doing these advice transformation projects, there was another graduate that I was working with at the time. And, we got very different advice. He got some great coaching from his parents, which was basically live the 2-minute noodle diet, buy a place at Manly Vale because it's, close to Manly and that'll be a growth suburb. And, he rented it out for a bit. And I got some very different advice, which was live your life and, your earnings will grow, your income will grow, and you'll be able to do more things with money later on as your income grows. We caught up probably 6 years ago. So I think about 9 years had passed and we're sort of reflecting on where we're at, each of us in life. And I just bought an apartment and I was doing all right. I had maybe like 50 grand or something in the bank. And it was kind of like, I've bought an apartment. And he said he'd just paid off his apartment.
Yeah.
And it was worth $900,000 at that point in time. He bought it for like 600. And I just had this huge wake up call of like, we have like a 10x difference in where we've ended up after just 9 years. And all of that came down to like, he'd gotten some really good advice and really good guidance on what he should do with his money. But I think helped shaped for me as well. Like if I'd been able to go back and understand the impact of all the decisions that I'd made along the way in those 9 years, I don't think the difference would have been 9 times. It would have been still a difference, but it wouldn't have been 9 times. So, yeah.
What did he do within 9 years' time to be able to pay off the apartment? Did he invest?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. So he rented it out for a period of time. Like he basically lived at home, rented it out, and then focused really on living like quite frugally for quite a few years. And the difference that makes in his life has been astronomical. That was 6 years ago now that he paid that place off. He then bought a house on the Upper North Shore. It's probably the nicest house I've ever been in. And that was really all unlocked by having bought the first place, paid it off, sold it, and then was able to get into, a really nice house. So huge impact.
Okay. So did he have like a bank of mom and dad, or he did everything solely by himself and create everything on his
Yeah,
own?
I think like a lot of people in Sydney, I mean, he had a little bit of like bank of mum and dad help. Nothing crazy, but he also had the advantage of being able to go home and rent with his parents or like live with his parents, which also made a big impact. So,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. You have some talent of learning other languages then, and you prepared a Cantonese version of the introduction. We almost forgot that. So
yeah.
showtime, Cam.
Nei hao. No hai Cameron. No sek gong siu siu gong gong wa.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. And I reckon some connections with Cantonese speaking family members, or like, where did you pick up the language?
Yeah, my wife's Cantonese. Like she like born in Australia, but like her whole family's
Yeah, that
Cantonese. So
explains.
we go to Hong Kong every year, and I'm slowly learning the language, nowhere near as quickly as I'd like. But I think that all the different tones make it quite difficult. So
Yeah. It's even the same for me, because I come from the Mandarin speaking area, so Cantonese is like another language, so to speak.
Yeah.
So kudos, right? Kudos, and very brave. Yeah, that's pretty good. So thanks for sharing that story. When you're just starting out, your view on money, and that true story behind, if you took a decision and then 9 years after that, the result can be drastically, huge or different. And that speaks loud to me. Like, we really need to be, have something to be able to visualize the future, what future holds for us, right? And then that brings me to this wonderful tool of Canwi. So Ken, tell me about what Canwi is for and what does it do?
Yeah. So Canwi helps you run the numbers on big financial decisions. So that includes things like property. It could be things like buying a home. It could be upgrading, investing, contributing to super, paying down debt faster, and understanding the impact that has on your cash flow as well as your long-term wealth. It helps you by basically, you outline what your initial position is, and then you just drag and drop different life events onto a timeline of your life, and then see how all of that stuff plays out. So you can basically simulate a whole bunch of different potential financial features for yourself, and then compare those scenarios side by side and see which one is going to work out best for you. I think in a nutshell, it's very similar to the financial modeling software that a professional financial advisor uses. And if you were to go and see a financial advisor, they would charge you probably $5,000 to $10,000 to give you the output of that software. But we give you that in a way that makes it that's so simple, and it's just like using something like Canva or Trello. So really that combination of financial modeling and simple.
Yeah. And I like the way first of all, I like the look and feel. Right? It's very user friendly. It's like playing some video games, and if you plug the start item here, and then you can potentially get the like 10 years later, what's it look like? What's the implication of that milestone event?
Exactly.
So if I like just give you 10 seconds or 30 seconds, just tell me, treat me as 8 years old children, like what can help me?
Yeah. So what it can help you do is really run the numbers on a variety of different financial decisions. So if you're wondering about something like, should I leave money in my offset or should I invest it? How does each of those two different decisions play out? Should I buy an investment property or should I invest in shares? How do each of those decisions play out? Give you just a really clear visual depiction of the impact on your cash flow and net worth, as well as some milestones that you define as well. And really what that enables you to do is to make a really informed and confident decision, because you've run the numbers and you understand where each of those things is probably going to lead you to. It's also like, it's all deterministic modeling. So like the future is not set in stone. And so like, I like to think of it as like, it's not just about the plan. Like the plan is not necessarily going to fit with reality, but the process of planning will teach you a bunch of things about how financial math and personal finance plays out.
Yeah. And it's also like the learning process. Like, so once you go through the planning, it's for me, my experience is that I learn some of the key financial knowledge along the way, just filling my gaps as I'm going through the practice.
Yeah, and I think Australia has a whole bunch of very specific rules around tax and super, and those have very, very big impacts. If you think about things like negative gearing and the like, and deeming rules, and all of those things have a fairly big impact on how personal finance plays out in Australia. Understanding those things gives you a huge leg up on people that don't and aren't engaging with it.
Yeah. And can you tell me some of the key scenario that you can see that people are using to simulate, and they're trying to figure out their kind of what the future look like for them?
Yeah. Yes, there's a bunch of scenarios I think that our users are planning for. I'd say they fall into a few common categories. One of those categories is early retirement. The most popular thing it's our most popular goal by country mile is financial independence and retiring early. That doesn't mean that people are looking to, live very frugally, like a lot of like the very FIRE centric movement. But there's a really strong theme of like, I don't want to be working until I'm 67. I want a plan where, I can buy property. I can have enough assets inside super and outside super to be able to retire when I want, which is probably going to be somewhere between 55 and 60. And then that I can fund a lifestyle after that. That's what I want in life, with the holidays and all the rest of it. So that's probably one of the things. And then I think the other type of scenarios that we see people modeling out is optimization things, where they're thinking about doing all these different things. How should I fund those things? And is it a good way for me to go about doing something? So like, is my strategy right of how I want to achieve something? Should I use my offset to do this? Should I use a loan to do it? If I use a loan, what does that do? Should I wait until I build up enough cash to buy property, or should I take on debt? Lots of different things like that are all like optimization problems.
That does resonate with me, because I've I come across with a lot of clients. Their ultimate goal is to be able to retire early and financial free through property investment. So for me, I've tried a lot of scenario, and I find that give me some clarity, right, in terms of how many properties I need, what each of the property look like, so what goals it holds for the whole portfolio. So I found that quite useful, to be honest. And then we had some touch on the product in general. And then if we just joining a little bit in terms of where can we start? When did you start with the Canwi journey?
That's a good question. So I think probably about 3 years ago is when it sort of started to turn into something that we thought, there's a problem here. There's probably something that we can do to address it. And then we started doing like some early concepting, started building like 2 and a bit years ago. And then we've been very hard at work building like a simulation of Australia's tax and superannuation system since then. It's funny when you really dive into the detail of Australia's tax and superannuation system, how detailed and nuanced it is, and all the different rules that come into play and the like. It's enormously complex. But we are at a point now where we're opening up access. We had 2,000 people join our beta last year.
Yeah.
So, well over 1,000 financial plans built through that. We also had some huge wins. So yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. If we go back with the time machine, what was the first like success like along the way in the early days, and then that could give you some strengths. Hey, look, this is the right path and it's on track. And let's get on track with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably one of our earliest successes was, so before we went into beta, before last year, we ran an alpha. The product was very basic at the time. Like it had a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
We had 25 people in our alpha. So it was a really small group. One of the people in that alpha had a really clear goal, which was that they wanted to change industries completely. So they were leaving the Defence Force and wanted to try and build a plan of taking time out of the workforce to retrain, go to university, study medicine. They had 2 properties already. So they had like a house in the outskirts of Victoria, as well as an apartment in Melbourne, both rented. And what they really wanted to understand was, if I live at home, so if I stop renting, if I live at home, if we cut our expenses down to this, can I tide through until I'm finished my medicine degree? They worked out that if they sold one of the properties, that they were able to get there. And that was a huge moment for them. They were going like, this is unlocked. I've got confidence that I can do this. I can get through this, this period of my life. So, yeah, that was probably our first big win that made us go, wow, like we've just helped someone make a life-changing decision.
Yeah. It is. And everything involves money, right? Or property, right? Because property is a big ticket item. So, and if you help them figure out the way, forward, then definitely that's a huge success for you. I mean, it's quite rewarding, especially for me. If I see my client success, that'll make my day. Yeah.
Yeah. I think particularly in Australia, like property is such a big part of investing and building wealth in Australia. It is such a big part. Every time you run the numbers on the impact of property and leverage, the impact is enormous and it just mathematically trumps other options.
Yeah.
So I think particularly in Australia, it makes so much sense to invest in property.
Yeah. And that's why our Prime Minister invests in property as well. And you have so you are a co-founder and you have other.
Yeah. So 2 co-founders. Our team is basically a combination of product and engineering experts. So my co-founders are both people that have worked in like big banks and financial services firms. We've worked in small companies. We've worked in startups. We've worked in some startups that haven't worked out, which has been great learning experience. And we've worked in some of the largest banks and insurers in the world as well. It's sort of a interesting pedigree across the team, which is really nice.
Yeah. Because I see some of the of your design make me think one neobank. Probably that's the one you worked for. But yeah, I like the style. It's resonating to younger generation, and it's giving you like a bit of TikTok-esque, right? That feel and vibe. Yeah, which is good. Which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think we always set out with the idea being that we didn't want it to look like an Excel spreadsheet. One of the first things that we learned when we were really starting to look at building something, one of the first things we did was we went and interviewed a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
And there was this really common thread that came out of it, which was people were talking about when they would plan. And a lot of people we spoke to already did some sort of plan. Most of the time it was in Excel or Google Sheets or something.
Yeah.
And they all spoke about, it's something I do at night or on the weekend. And the last thing I want to do, most of these people were white collar. They had like corporate careers. They were like, the last thing I want to do at night or on the weekend is pull out Excel and spend hours building a financial model and to try and like assess a decision. And if this tool looks like a financial model at the end of the day, like it's going to fit in that same category of like the last thing I want to use. So we really started with like, this needs to look fun and approachable, have lots of depth, but not look boring and bland and like a lot of work. And it's also been really interesting. I think we always held the assumption that we would alienate older users. And yet we're increasingly seeing users joining us now that are, in their mid-late 50s that are going, actually, the design is kind of nice. Like it feels warm. It feels fun. Like it obviously does a bunch of serious number crunching and like its design certainly doesn't turn me off. So it's been really interesting.
Like I said, it makes financial planning enjoyable with those little avatar or things like that. I love doing this. So, and then when you're starting out, do you have a vision or do you have some kind of future status in your mind that, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is what it look like in the future. Yeah, this is the end goal, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we had some concepts fairly early on that in some ways look similar to what we've built now. I think we've learnt so much along the journey that what I think some of our earliest views are, which like when you come into the tool, there's a plan builder view. It's basically a timeline of your life, and then you've got a cash flow chart underneath it, and there's a couple of other charts and tables that you can put there instead. That was one of our very early concepts. We really started with that idea of like it should be very like simple looking. What I think has changed in our thinking over time is, and what we've learned from people is, people come in, they're attracted to that. They find it really cool and easy to get started with. But then over time, people want to dig more into the detail. Once they've started to build a plan, they've got some stuff really thought through. It really then turns into what do the underlying numbers in this thing look like? Because, I've tried to do something in Excel. And so I know what the Excel version of this might look like and what rows I might have tried to do in Excel. Now I want to actually see what effectively that looks like in Canwi. Yeah. And so having like tabular interfaces with a whole bunch of detail has increasingly become something that we know that users value even more so in some ways. Once they get past like the simple is a great way to get started, they value it a lot more than the simple interface that helps them get started.
Yeah. That's cool. It's cool. So, and then if we can, deep dive a little bit on the product. So what makes Canwi different, as opposed to the old financial planning tools? I don't know. Do you maybe give some examples of the tools, except Excel?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There isn't a lot of financial planning tools that are consumer accessible in Australia. When you look historically, there's a tool called Financial Mappers, quite detailed and complex, and like it's been around for like 10, 15 years or something. Like it's quite complicated to use. There's an American tool called Projection Lab, which has been growing in recent years. It's again kind of in that bucket of like it's very generic, it's very powerful, but it's not tailored to Australia, and it is quite complex to use as well. Where we've always focused is the experience needs to be so dead simple that anyone can use it. It needs to be so tailored to Australia that all of the complexity of our tax and superannuation system should really be abstracted away from you so that you can just do the things you want to do and then we'll crunch the numbers in the background based on that. And so like all of the events in Canwi are like contribute to super as opposed to like trying to create like an income stream or something into a superannuation account. It's all very like, I want to do this. That's what the event is. All the details underneath the covers. We'll calculate things like stamp duty for you. We'll tell you what that will be. It's all kind of like done for you.
Yeah, that's true. Because I used Projection Lab myself. It's very US centric. I didn't see much tailored features for Australian users. So and then quickly just to cancel my subscription. So what are the some of the pain points that you're trying to help with the ordinary Australian to hit their financial goals?
Yeah, I think in terms of pain points, I'd say the biggest pain point we're trying to solve and something that we do that no one else I think really does is to give you the engine to simulate the future that is completely comprehensive across everything. There's a bunch of calculators out there that can help you assess a decision, one decision in isolation. Like if I invest into super, what is that going to do to my super balance? If I purchase an investment property, what's that going to do for my cash flow? But there isn't something that pulls all of that together and to help you assess across that whole gamut of different things that you could do. If I pick to do any of those things or all of those things, what does that look like? And then because we make it so simple and so easy to simulate the future, and we do have a really big focus on goals and like distilling those goals into milestones and numbers that are going to be meaningful, it becomes really easy to simulate the future and go, does that get me to my goal? No, it doesn't. Does this get me to my goal? No, it doesn't. Does that get me there? Yeah, it does. Cool. Great. That's a better plan than these other two.
Right. And then, so I'm just thinking as we just chatting on some of the features. So I'm just thinking, so let's say I'm trying to work out the best option forward for me to achieve my personal financial goal, right? Either through property investment or shares or whatever, building my super. My question is that if I don't know the stuff that I don't know, right? If I don't know the option, then I wouldn't visualize going through that path. Do you have any like templates that will help people? Okay, I haven't thought about this and this can work actually. Do you have anything like that, or have you heard any feedback from your client that it does help me?
Yeah, that's a great question. So 1, we don't have any templates like that yet. 2, we are building them. And 3, yes, we've definitely heard that from people. I think so far, I'd say we've focused more so on people that either are getting help already. So I'll put our users into 2 buckets. They're already getting help. So they're seeing like a financial coach, or they are more like quite highly financially literate and have a reasonable idea of the different options out there. So most of our users currently fit into one of those 2 categories. We do also offer an increasing amount of hand-holding where we just kicked off this quarter. Every Thursday night, we do a session. Anyone can join it. We'll sit there. We'll help people build plans. We'll demo. We'll give ideas of different things. We're going to be building out a planning library or like a scenario library as part of that. We'll put all of those onto our website and then you'll be able to explore those and use them to, I don't know that I'd say necessarily as like a template because everyone's situation's different and like, it's going to have assumptions around what income and expenses there are, but at least it'll give you like something that you can go, here is 15 different options that have been modeled out. Even if my personal circumstances are a bit different, I can either start with that and adjust it to fit me, or I could look at it and get some inspiration from a few different things.
Yeah, I agree. Because there are thousands of ways to skin cut, right? And then it definitely is going to be a different paths, right? Based on your, financial circumstances and where you start, right? So yeah, definitely if you give them this arsenal of all the feasible tools to make you go from A to B, and then that definitely will help people to make more clarity through the practice.
Yeah, I think I'll probably just add on to that as well, that one of the things that we're always really extremely careful about is that financial advice in Australia is really, really regulated, and
Yes.
we're not a financial advice platform. We can't be seen to be making recommendations, and certainly not recommending specific financial products is definitely not something we can be doing. And so our framing around things like this is something that we always have to be extraordinarily clear about and careful about. So
because I'm doing this podcast, right, to educating and sharing the success story of property investment, and I don't want people to see this as financial advice, because it's not, right? It's just personal story sharing or general information sharing. But I can understand it's heavily regulated for financial planning in the financial planning world. So that makes sense.
I also think, and I think this is also a place that people like yourself really, really play a big role in this, is like, I view really our role as helping people work out a strategy and work through a bunch of different strategies, but not in executing. And that's also an area where I'd say we also try to lean out of advice by going like, we definitely don't help you with any execution. When it comes to, you can model out buying a property and put a bunch of assumptions around it. We can give you default assumptions and a bunch of information on that. But at the end of the day, in order to achieve that outcome, you need to go and execute on that to find a property that's going to achieve the returns you're looking for, or the rental yield that you're looking for, which certainly as like an average punter like myself, someone that doesn't have a property empire, I'd be looking for some help on to execute on that. So
I think that's that's where you need I would say some common sense, right? If you planning out, try to be successful through property investment, and let's say if you model something, buying a property, it can't be 10% annual growth in capital and then 10% rental yield. There's no unicorn like that. So definitely it's like you said, you are not helping people executing, but you kind of help them to visualize a potential roadmap, and they can, based on that, they can take on and then to seek more professional advice, assistance to help them achieve their goals. And speaking of that, what's your? I would love to hear your thoughts about what's the biggest challenge of scaling Canwi?
It's a good question. I think the hardest thing for us so far has been getting to a point where there's enough completeness in the app to handle the different scenarios that people want to plan for. If you think about it, there are so many different ways that people can think about living their life, and because of the tax rules and like all the different tax rules in Australia, even something that seems simple, like someone says, I want to be able to move into an investment property, I want to be able to model that. That comes with a bunch of work to go and make sure that we do. If you move into it, now that's a deeming event. If it was a home and then you rent it out, that's a deeming event. Cool. Now we need to like adjust the cost basis. So like there's all these different things that when you look at it and go like, oh, that seems simple, there's actually a lot of work underneath the covers to make sure that you run the numbers on it correctly. And getting to a point where we've built enough of that has been a bunch of work. I think the other thing in terms of scaling for us, and we're just really starting to go to market now. Like we had 2,000 people join our beta last year, is just working out how to get the word out. We think in many ways like we've built the best financial planning platform in Australia that anyone can access, and now it's really just how do we tell everyone about.
And hence you probably, I don't know, for me, I would, for my business, I would also network to death, right? Just spread word. It's fascinating. It's a powerful tool. So everyone, come upload, trial. That's cool, and that's okay. We'll take a step, right, each time, and then we'll get there in the end eventually. And today is one of the steps we are doing. That's good. And then I also wanted to ask you. This is a bit more like a product owner type of questions. So how do you balance simplicity for the users with the complexity of real life financial planning? Right, because you want to make things simple and easier for them to understand, but also there are so many kind of nuances that you have to kind of touch. And then what's your approach and what's your balance? How you see this?
I'll probably put this into, I think, 3 buckets. So the first is from a surface level, we draw a lot of inspiration from tools like Canva and Trello. There's also a few global tools that do financial planning concepts quite well that are like consumer-focused financial planning apps. So we draw a lot of surface level inspiration from them. I think then going down a level, we've always tried to go, let's focus on what does someone say that they want to achieve. Let's turn whatever people say they want to achieve into an event. When you add an event, there's then a bunch of questions or options when you're at an event, like buying a property. They're configurable. We also have taken the approach of there's a lot of things when you go and like say add buy a home that go into that. Things like the additional costs associated with buying the home. So for things like getting a conveyancer, paying stamp duty and the like. And so we also like to try and provide defaults that are grounded in statistics of, well, here is a research paper that said that it costs this much. You can configure it. You can adjust it if you have an opinion on how much that's going to cost. And there's a reason why you think it's going to be different. The flexibility is always there for you to adjust it to something else. But we'll always try and set a sensible default for you, because there's a lot of things that I think you think about, like, well, what's the average return on a house? And that's a really easy example of, like, you know, you ask an average person on the street that's one of the things that we have to have as an assumption on how much is this property going to grow at. And so we'll put in, here is the average return rate on houses in each of the capital cities in Australia, as well as across Australia. You know, if you've got a reason why you want to select a different number, you can totally put it. But the information is already there for you. So we try to do all the research for you so that you don't have to go somewhere else. It's all just there. It's all configured with sensible defaults, and then you can adjust it if you want to.
Yeah, that's cool. Because actually I wanted to ask you like how AI play in this in this field, right? Like we all know, it is AI creeping into every corner of fintech. So how can we stay grounded in professional ethics and personalized advice and everything, just in product in general, like in service you provide in general?
Yeah. I mean, I love this question because I think, I'm very bullish on AI. I'm a huge consumer of AI. As a small business, we use AI stuff to draft content. We use it to research things. We use it to help us accelerate writing code. It's a huge accelerator for productivity. I think also because of the extent and the type of things we use AI for, we also have a really clear idea of where it falls short, which is oftentimes that, like, you need to, one, it's not great at math, but you also need to ask it really specific prompts in order to get an accurate answer. I was looking at something earlier today where if you ask ChatGPT or Gemini, there's a couple of different platforms you can test this on, but how much of VAS stock you need to have in order to fund a retirement of X amount. Each platform gives you different answers, and the order, like, there's about it spreads from $2.3 to $3.5 million between them. Depending on the way you look at it, all of the answers are correct in a way. The AI just spits out an answer, and I think for that, like, it can't necessarily be used reliably. So for us, I'd say we look at this as we need to build an accurate, deterministic, testable simulation of Australia's financial landscape and Australia's financial system. And then we really think of AI as, how does it either help us speed up using Canwi? So for instance, one of the product features that we're going to work on this year, we've done some proof of concepts around already, but one of the features we're going to work on this year is being able to just describe what you want. So say, for instance, show me 3 different scenarios where I buy an investment property for $500,000 every 5 years versus a scenario where I invest everything into shares versus another where I distribute between shares and superannuation. It will then go off and orchestrate Canwi to go and add events based on what you've just described and spin up 3 different scenarios for you, and then spin up, here's the scenario comparison of how those things play out for you. So it all runs through our deterministic, auditable, correct QA'd model, but just helps you speed up using it. And then the other way that we think about it is, I think one of the things that AI has done really well is unlock the experience of being able to ask whatever question you want in your own language and get an answer. And we also look at this as, like, how do we help you explore and get insights from our outputs? So again, the same deterministic, correct, audited model, and be able to ask any questions you want of that and get insights based on those numbers. So for instance, you might be like, hey, I want to know, when is my net worth going to be 25 times my current expenses? 25 times your current expenses, that's something that our model produces for you. It also produces when it's going to be 25 times. So an LLM or an AI tool will be very good at joining that together to go, this is the year. We're already using that a little bit today. We have an experimental feature in our paid plan, which is for scenario comparisons. When you compare scenarios, maybe you've built the 3 scenarios I said earlier of like the buying multiple houses or investing into super, that type of thing. And we use AI to create a summary, just a very simple summary, a couple of dot points of the differences between those scenarios and why the financial differences have occurred. Just to try and distill that into like plain English for people. So yeah.
Okay. And then, so speaking of the fee subscription versus the fee paying ones, so what are the additional features that you can unlock if you subscribe to the fee paying ones?
Yeah. There's a few things today. There's a lot more that's coming into our paid subscription, but today we're really focused on you get additional inputs, so you can provide more detail around things like expense growth rates. Is an expense going to grow at inflation? That's like if you're on our free tier, that's not something that you can control. It just will grow at inflation. With our paid tier, you'll be able to configure things so you can go, this expense is going to grow at inflation plus 1% or inflation minus 1%,
Okay.
or I want this expense to grow at wage growth rate. We also give you access to multiple scenarios so that you can run those different scenarios. And we give you access to scenario comparisons so that you can compare across multiple scenarios and see a really clear visual of like option A, B, and C play out as your net worth across time like this. It makes it dead simple to see which scenario is going to play out best for you.
Yeah.
Over time, you'll see a bunch more things go into that in terms of like more personalization within our paid tier. But right now we're quite nice with our free tier.
Yeah. And then if just to change gear, as someone who has gone through the planning and as the founder of this tool, so if I'm asking you to give give a 20 years old some opinion, not advice, right? Just some opinion or suggestions about financial planning. So what would you say to the 20 years old?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for a 20-year-old, I think the first thing I would say is like getting started on building a financial plan will have a life-changing impact. Again, I'll come back to my story for a moment of like, when I started my career, I didn't build the plan and I didn't get the good advice and I didn't work out that if I'd bought the property, which like the position I was in and the position my friend was in the story of like he bought a property, I didn't. I was in a position also to buy a property. I could have also made the sacrifices to do that. And I'll tell you, like 9 years later, I wish I had.
Yeah.
So for a 20-year-old, I think it's really like, start to think about what your goals are, pull together a bit of a picture of where you are today. For most 20-year-olds, it's probably going to be fairly simple. So like getting together that foundation of where you're starting from. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And then, using a tool like Canwi or by seeing a financial advisor, that's also fine too. It's really easy to work out what the optimal like path and decisions are to get there. So try and work out something that's going to get where you want to go and be intention.
Yeah. And I reckon you probably seen thousands of scenarios or plans created from the back end. Is there a good kind of like good traits, or because I want to learn from the best, right? If they've done it successfully, then it's gonna be something I can take away, or something the listeners can take away. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the most common things in our high performing plans is just buying investment properties.
Like buying.
Yeah. We have a few people whose plans are literally called like property baron or like, for some reason, everyone seems to call the scenario like property baron or something, some variation of that. So, and they're always our highest, if you think like highest financial outcome, highest net worths, they're almost always up in our top highest financial outcomes.
Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And cool. I think we before we kind of share the goodies that we promised in the beginning of the show, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners? A story or some learnings, anything?
Yeah, I'll start with a stat, which there's some research that the Financial Services Council commissioned a couple of years ago. We quote this on our website, and I think it's so important. It's also consistent with other global research, which is that people with a plan end up with 3.9 times more assets after 15 years. Now, when I think about like the average millennial, I'm a millennial. when I think about the average millennial in Australia has a net worth of $250,000 today. If you think about a 3x difference over the next 15 years, having a plan next UK net worth, that's $1 million at least of impact. And if you think across like the millennial generation, again, just millennials, there's a bunch of different stats around this, but there's something like 4 million millennials that want financial advice and financial planning help. You multiply all that out, and we're talking about trillions of dollars that people are leaving on the table just by not building a plan and then taking action on that plan. So I think that's probably like the first thing I'd say is have a plan and then execute on that plan. And I think particularly in Australia, again, property is so important in Australia. Property is such a big part of people's wealth building journey, and it's such a big decision. It's too big a decision, I think, to try and just wing it. You should run the numbers, you should make it intentional, and you should work out how those things fit into your goals. Is rent vesting a strategy you want to look at? Is buying a whole bunch of investment properties a strategy you want to look at? Do you want to live in a house that's a stepping stone or an apartment that's a stepping stone to the dream home? Should you wait a bit longer for the dream home? There's so many different scenarios that you could run through, and you should run the numbers, and you should work with someone to make sure that you actually execute on the plan to achieve the plan.
Yeah. And failing to plan is planning to fail, right?
I love it. It's so true. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Now it's time for Cam to show some of the generosities from Cam. So what was the deal? What was the deal of the day?
Yeah, so deal of the day. This for PropTeaTalk listeners. We're going to do a discount code. We have two plans or two ways that you can sign up for Canwi. We have an annual plan and we have a monthly plan. We'll do a 40% discount on our annual plan and a 25% discount on our monthly plan. The codes for those, I think William will share, but it'll be PropTeaTalk 40 and PropTeaTalk 25. So we'll get those out to you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Really excited to get more people on, and certainly from an audience of people that are interested in this space.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. So I'll share the codes in the show notes, or if anyone can reach out to me to ask for the codes. But yeah, really thanks again, Cam, for your time and generosity. So all the best with your Canwi future. I believe it's going to be a big success. So yeah, we're probably going to, invite you back for another episode, 6 months or 12 months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate it. It's really good to chat and really good to connect. So thank you.
Unlock doors, the market roars, opportunities galore, from flipping paths to getting grads, we're the pros who keep the score. PropTeaTalk, we got your back in the world of real estate jack. Listen in, we've got the knack for turning dreams from white to black. Unlock doors, the market roars, opportunities galore, from flipping paths to getting grads, we're the pros who keep the score.